Hey, welcome to Make More Music, the podcast that connects people to music and one another. My name's Chris, and I'm a board-certified music therapist. If this is your first time tuning in, thanks. I'm glad you're here. We share the stories of different music and music-related field professionals to dispel the myth that it's just starving artist or rock star, and to show that there are different niches and communities and career paths in the music industry. So today I talk with an amazing music therapist and colleague of mine, Gabby Banzon. She's doing a lot of things, including working in a cool community arts organization with individuals with special needs, as well as songwriting, an author of a songwriting workbook, and also a music therapy podcaster. She joins and heads up a music therapy collective that hosts the show Clinical BOPulations that shares independent artist songs to music therapists and how they could be used in therapy. So without further ado, here is Gabby Banzon. All right, we've got Gabby Banzon here. I'm glad for doing our first remote interview. So welcome to the inaugural remote interview.
Yes.
So I've been obsessed with you and your crew's work for a while now with Clinical BOPulations. I got to meet you at conference this year, so that was super fun. But give me kind of the backstory. Let's go down the winding road. So take me back to childhood and how you got into music and everything.
Well, I started playing piano when I was 5 because my parents made me take piano lessons. And so it was just kind of a thing I had to do. I wasn't super interested in it, but I was decent at it. And then in end of elementary school, I got tired of it, and I was like, I'm done with piano, and I quit.
What a rebel.
Right? And then it was the same time when instruments, like they were trying to test what instruments you'd be good at in band or orchestra or choir. What are you going into ensemble wise? So I ended up starting on saxophone at school, and then I just kind of stuck with that throughout middle school. End of elementary school and middle school, and also during middle school, I started getting more involved musically with different church group ensembles, and so I picked up guitar there, and then while I was in middle school, also jazz band became a thing, but I wasn't good enough at saxophone to make it into the jazz band. But piano, I at one point was able to do it, so I got into it. I got in the jazz band due to my piano skills, so I started playing piano again. And then high school, I just kind of started learning more and more, and then I decided to go into music therapy. And so I learned even more in college, and now I'm here.
That's exciting. So I didn't start playing like piano early, but that middle school band experience is very similar to my background. So what were you doing, like any bands, or did you do marching band as well, or what other things were you involved in?
Yeah, I was in marching band. I was a total band nerd. It was great. I was also in pep band.
Oh, you did all the things.
Yeah. I loved it. It was great. And then, I was in like some worship team bands as well. So I was in a decent amount of ensembles, actually. Jazz band too. Did I mention that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So,
exciting. Did you have any like rock bands or anything like that as well?
I wanted to, but I never had time because I was
Mhm.
so involved with the school bands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I heard your story and heard how you were watching, what was it, the NBA finals or something when you found out about music therapy?
Oh
What
my
you
gosh, Chris, you know like everything about me.
I'm a pro podcast stalker. So, what year was that roughly?
2018. Either 8 or 9.
Okay, so do you remember who was playing in the finals?
The Lakers and the Magic.
Oh, so cool. So you hear this person talking about music therapy, and you stumble into what school did you go into for undergrad?
Georgia College and State University.
Okay, cool. And where did you do your internship?
The Augusta VA Medical Center.
Cool. And then how long did you stay in that area before you transitioned over to Texas and stuff?
Not long, actually. I think I stayed in Atlanta. I went back home to Atlanta for a couple months, and then, um, I just hopped over to Texas for grad school. So I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 months, maybe.
Cool. Did you have any like contract jobs or anything before you went there?
Um, Not really, because I knew I was in a state of transition. I didn't want to get into a contract as far as music therapy is concerned, but I did do a lot of music gigs.
Okay. What
Yeah.
what kind of gigs are you doing or were you doing and things like that?
Um, it was primarily like church and retreat gigs. So if someone needed a sub to play for a mass, or if someone needed someone to play for a retreat, because those are just one time things. I would usually play for that, and then if people needed like an extra guitarist or some backup vocals or a pianist for something, regardless of the genre, I'd usually sub in for that as well.
I love that. I've never personally had any problems getting employment in like music therapy and music just because I think I click similarly to that of like I'm just going to get a gig, I'm just going to play, and even this month I've got a wedding gig I'm playing just
Nice.
for fun, just to like hang out with my friend and we're going to play some music together. So, um what kind of strategies, what do you do to stay on top of multiple things, because you do a lot? So how do you kind of manage the different things before we get into what all you do now?
That's a good question. Um, I have recently gotten back into having like a physical planner, that has like a to-do list and then actual dates on it and a reminder list. Um, but I try to keep everything on separate email accounts.
Just keep what
So
lives here, and what lives there lives
yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah. So that kind of helps me compartmentalize.
Word. So
Hmm.
you're living back in Atlanta, and then you decide you're going to want to do grad school. So you go, what school was it again?
Texas Women's
Okay,
University.
TWU. We have an intern coming from there in a few months to U of
Nice.
L. So I'm excited to meet my first person in a clinical environment that way. But so what made you decide to hop into masters? I'm always interested, especially with young professionals at the time. What made you decide I'm going to hop in and get a master's in music therapy?
I um Well, one, my parents, they said they would help me a little bit financially, just because. So if you go do your undergrad in Georgia and you're from Georgia and you have a certain GPA, you basically get to go to college for
Mm,
almost free.
yeah.
So if it's a state
There's
college,
similar programs in Kentucky. Yeah.
nice, yeah. So all the money that they had saved up for my undergrad, there was still stuff left over. So they said if I wanted to go to grad school out of state, they would help with some of the payments for it. Um, so that was one of the things I was like, well, if they said, they'd help out,
Yeah.
then that would help me.
Yeah. Right
And
place, right
then,
time. Yeah.
yeah. And then also, I just like school. Like it's
Mm.
something that's always come easy to me, and I enjoy being in a classroom, and I enjoy discussions and conversations, and writing as well. So I also didn't want to be an adult and get a real job. So it was you know just a choice that seemed to kind of fall into my lap.
Sweet. So, what kind of changed for you about how you thought about music therapy? Like, would you recommend somebody kind of at that stage to hop into a master's? And what did you get out of that experience as a young professional? Moving away from home, kind of diving into a new community and taking on the
Mm.
masters. Was that a good step for you in that way, or anything you'd do
Uh,
differently looking back, or anything like that?
it was difficult emotionally, just because it was a straight up move halfway across the country. And then it was also my first, year as a professional. So I was also having to um, try to find some sort of part-time job to get
Mm.
experience. But also I was in classes with some folks who were highly experienced because they were master students, but also I was with students who were equivalency students. Um, so learning to navigate those different relationships was difficult for me,
Hmm.
because I was halfway intimidated, but also halfway just wanting friends of some
Yeah,
sort.
yeah, for sure.
um, yeah.
I always think that's a
I
weird dynamic, that the master's equivalency at the same time as someone else who's already done an undergrad. I always think that's like a strange thing to navigate in programs.
Yeah, it is strange, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad
Hmm.
thing. Yeah, I mean, some of my closest friends in the program that I'm still close with today were equivalency students.
Totally.
So, yeah. I don't know. It was a good decision because it set me up for creating a lot of relationships that have helped me now, as a just a professional. But I did feel like I was lacking in being able to pull from experiences, to comprehend, different theories
Hmm.
or um, other things that we were learning. So it was good in some respects, but it was also challenging in other respects.
Yeah, totally. I did my master's literally right after internship, and
Mm,
I definitely had similar experiences. So
mm-hmm,
it's a strange thing, but yeah, my opportunity was similar, where it was like, it was there, it was the right time, and I just went for it.
mm-hmm,
And like you, I
mm-hmm,
agree, it was good at the time. I definitely wouldn't change it. Like, it worked out perfect. But um, yeah, it's just interesting how different people come to the masters, and what does it actually mean for us as a
mm.
profession. I don't know. So no answers for that one, but but so you worked in the VA during internship, and did you
Mm-hmm.
pull any extra contracts while you were in school for masters?
Yeah, I actually was a graduate assistant.
Me too.
S- yeah, but a lot of the responsibilities of that particular grad position was actually supervising.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had to. One of my first jobs was actually supervising students.
Like pretending you knew what you
In
were
the,
doing.
yeah, yeah. But it was great because they gave me like a supervisor for supervising my first
Yeah.
year, and I learned so much from her. So it was great. Um, and then I worked a little bit at a mental hospital, sorry, psych hospital
Hmm.
for adults, on the weekends, and that lasted for just a little bit, like probably a
Yeah.
year, because it was a difficult situation. And then probably around that time that ended was when my current job um, actually wanted some help with their therapeutic arts program. So they contacted um, Mike Sanders, who
Hmm.
was on the live episode, and he asked me if I wanted to help out with that. So I contracted with the theater that I currently work at now.
So yeah, that was during your master you started
Hmm.
working there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did that start as a small contract and has built up?
Yeah, it started as a small contract, and I was helping out maybe just, once or twice a week for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was about to graduate and they asked, what I was doing. And I said, I had no idea, but I'm probably not staying here because I don't have a job.
That's funny.
But they're like, wait, you can't leave us. And and I was like, but I don't have a job. And they somehow managed to wrangle up, hours for me
Great.
to have a job and develop a program.
The
So
old Jerry Maguire treatment got him. That's good.
yeah,
All right.
yes.
So, you've been working there pretty much since then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So,
Yes.
is that a standalone theater or is it part of a network or anything? How does that work?
Yeah. So what I manage is a program called the Star Catchers, which is for youth and adults with special needs. And it's one branch of a larger nonprofit called North Texas Performing Arts.
Hmm.
And they have 4 physical locations. And so each location is connected, but they also kind of run their own, like their own programming, and like budget wise, they run their own. But within the organization, they also have different troops that are housed amongst all 4 physical locations. So the Star Catchers program that I run fits into that. So we are basically at all 4 locations and run a couple of different programs at each location.
So you are bouncing around a little bit to the other locations?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Okay. How spread out is that?
Mm, they're about maximum like 40 minutes from each other.
Okay, not too bad for
Yeah.
a big
No.
area. Well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
pretty sweet. So, I've loved like hearing your background talking about that. I would love to hear a little bit about the philosophy of going into that. What is your kind of approach to this? I would say that's very unique. Do you know anyone else is doing something like very similar to what you're doing right now?
In the US, I don't know anyone that's doing it full time. I know people that, not people, I don't know the people, but I've heard
Mm-hmm.
of people doing it, maybe once a week, or, once a month or something, or for just, a semester. There's a program similar to it, actually in Milledgeville, where at Georgia College, or it's a facility connected to Georgia College, called the called Creative Expressions, and so it's performance based, community music therapy. So they put on performances, for and with the community, with the help of music therapists and music therapy students. So doing that all 4 years for practicum when I was an undergrad, um, actually came really in handy when I started the job that I'm at now, because one, it taught me how to, manage a performance
Yeah.
and put things together. Two, it showed me that things like performing actually can be therapeutic. It doesn't have to be, one on one in a clinic or at a school
Yeah.
or at a hospital. Um, the act of rehearsing and performing has its own therapeutic benefits. So, yeah, that kind of stayed with me as I started figuring out programming and what to do at with the Star Catchers.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely a relational and communal approach that I take when working with everyone involved. So it's not just the youth and adults with special needs, it's also their families,
Mm-hmm.
it's also the volunteers from the community, it's also the organization and like the society around it.
Yeah.
So it's a very community and relationship oriented approach.
Did it take any um, pushback from the organization or even kind of from yourself and your own kind of constructs of, what's therapy. I don't know kind of the background of the two schools that well, but like, did you have to fight any like urges to create like all these objectives and anything like that when you're planning it, or is this natural, or, like, where does that kind of fit in your philosophy of practice and stuff?
I think that's a good question. I think I was battling with myself, not because I didn't agree with the approach, but more because I had an idea in my head of where I was going to end up as a music therapist and where I was going to work, and this wasn't the original
Yeah.
idea. So the difference between what I thought I was going to do and where I thought I was going to be, with where I am now, that was more of what I was battling. The school I went to was and is still super supportive of this program. So I don't think I got any pushback from educational wise. But I do think the organization itself, there is a lot of advocacy that has to be. They understand the program, but I don't think they like how it exists. But I don't think they understand. No, they understand why it exists, but not how it works.
Yeah, you have to remind
And
them frequently and things like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, there's been a lot over the past couple of years. I've tried to do a lot of education and like as the program has grown, just our presence, our presence itself has just really pointed to the need for it and why the organization needs to create a space for it as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really think a lot of programs are going to start focusing on that holistic model. It's something that when I started at the clinic, it's kind of been that same tearing down the walls of, what is therapy? Uh, you know, who does therapy? What do we call the people that do therapy?
Yeah.
It's like, so I took a page out of uh, listening from you all. I use the term clinic artists with all of the people that come to the clinic, and um, I think that resource oriented and the community music therapy approaches are just going to become more and more relevant and widespread in the kind of Western model, where it's still, has so much of a medical influence that I think, when we recognize that, like you said, like the act of rehearsing, the act of doing, the act of performing health, it doesn't matter what conditions these people have. So I think that's awesome about your program. So
Thank you.
switching gears a little bit. So you've been working here for how long before you get this wild idea to start this podcast?
Full-time 2 years and part-time 1 year. So I guess about 3 years.
Okay, cool. So you've been hustling at work for a while. And one thing I love about Clinical BOPulations is that it's so unique, and your all's approach to what a music therapist can and should be saying online is like the fact that when I first saw it, I was like, talking about songs, that's interesting. And at first one I listened to, I was like, well, I'm in. So tell me a little bit about kind of how you started it. What's the mission, and what do you all do? Who's all involved? Just give me the rundown of your perspective of how it all started.
Right. Well, so the job that I'm at is, while it's a good job and has pushed me a lot, it is a lot of hours and a lot of weird hours because it's based around performance schedules and rehearsal schedules, and a lot of the the star catchers that I work with can only do things after school or on the weekends. So while it's great, it was starting to get a little exhausting. So I just was trying to find something that would help me kind of combat that exhaustion and give me just some other sort of project to work on, because I love having projects and different projects to do. So if I can, take my mind off of work and do something else, that'd be great. So I was discussing with a colleague of mine about podcasts because she was thinking about starting one of her own, like in correlation with her private practice. And she had heard that I was friends with other podcasters, non-music therapy related, just friends who have podcasts. And she knew that I could also do sound editing things. She was kind of picking my brain. And she asked, "Have you ever thought about doing a podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Here's my business plan, right?
I've definitely thought about it, but I just, I don't want to do it myself. And I want it to be something interesting, like something that's different. That's not just research is great, but just, reading research or interviewing research isn't always the most entertaining thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Isn't always, it isn't always the most engaging. It's important and needed, but sometimes your attention span can just go away.
Preach.
So yeah. I was listening to a podcast called Song and Story that a friend of a friend runs, and in it he talks to different artists and asks the story behind the song, basically. And it's this whole conversation about how the song came to be and the process of it. And in the beginning of the episode they listen to the song, and at the end they listen to the song, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like, this is what I love.
Great.
But also, how this would be so beneficial for music therapy. I wonder if there's a way we can kind of shape and twist it to that. So I brought it up to Allison, who's one of my co-hosts, and she was like, let's do it.
That's great.
Let's go for it. Yeah. And because I already, had most of the tools as far as how to edit sound and, how, like, what to use to record and things like that. I just needed to figure out, how to get it out there. And so I just talked to a couple of friends who had their own podcasts, and they introduced me to Zencaster, which is what we're on right now.
We're not sponsored, but
yeah. Maybe they will sponsor. And then
glorious.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And a couple other websites. And then I already knew how to do social media stuff from different volunteer positions I've had to do in the past. So it kind of just all connected, and we released a couple episodes in 2018. Yeah, at the end of 2018, we released our first couple of episodes. Thanks to a couple of friends who are musicians themselves and lent us their songs for free. And then Dr. Michael Viega found out about the podcast and thought, messaged me and said, this is a great thing. I would love to maybe be part of it and help you guys with it. So we added him on.
That's sweet. He's such a rock star. It's like, oh, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I almost peed my pants when he messaged
me.
I was like, what?
My dog does that every time someone comes in the house. So it's that same as my dog.
So yeah, we had him on, and then after having those conversations with him, like with the second season that we had, we were thinking, well, what else do we do? Should we add more people? That'd be great. So we added my friend John, who went to undergrad with me, and he has more of a geriatric focus. And then we just recently added, well, we also had Mike Zanders on there a couple of times as well. And then we recently added on Grant Hales from California. And so it just kind of like,
It's cool.
yeah, they just like naturally grew. And then, yeah, we've just been having a lot of conversations
Yeah,
since
I
then.
love that aspect of, if you haven't heard it, definitely go check it out now, because I love that aspect of just people chatting about music and what you can make of it. And I think it was powerful to hear, like you all said, that you chatted about some of these songs, and it's from these independent artists, and sometimes they've reached back out to you and said like how meaningful it's been to hear
Yeah,
the
yeah.
perspective. So give me a couple of times you've had the artists interaction go beyond something you even thought it would be.
um, let's see. Well, one of I guess our first season, we featured Mike Mangione, who's a musician from Milwaukee. And I have actually known Mike for a while. We run in some of the same music circles, but he's definitely way more up there than I am. Um, and so, like, we've known like of each other, but he didn't actually listen to the podcast for the longest time. Like, he knew he was on it, but didn't listen to it. But then he was coming to Dallas. Maybe 4 months after we had released this episode, and he was playing a show, and I contacted him and I was like, hey, I want to come see your show. Me and Allison are going to come check you out. And he's like, oh, great. I haven't listened to your podcast yet, but now that I'm about to board a plane, I'm going to download real quick and like listen to it on the way to Dallas. So he lands, and then we see him at the concert. And so after the show, we hang around and wait to talk to him. And no, maybe this was before. Sorry, I'm getting my like timeline mixed up. It's late.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no. Okay, it was a house concert, so it was before the
Oh,
show.
fun.
Yeah, before the show, we went up to him and I'm like, "Hey, this is Allison," and like we all talked and had a conversation. And he was like, "I listened to the podcast," and I was like, "What do you think?" And he was like, "I felt like I was listening to a conversation that I shouldn't be listening in onto." And I was like, "What? Is that a bad thing?" He's like, "No, it's just like I've never heard my music analyzed, that deeply
Wow.
before." Yeah. And then throughout the concert, because it was a house concert, so it's a very intimate setting, um, he would just like crack like awkward theory jokes at us because he knew we understood it,
Yeah.
because he had listened to the episodes. And towards the end of his concert, he was showing everyone a new song he was working on. And he looks at us before he starts playing and he goes, hey guys, don't analyze this one, please, just
That's
like
awesome.
listen. Yeah,
It is
so that was
funny.
great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That idea that
uh,
we treat music so differently, and it becomes
mm-hmm.
like it becomes work. So it's funny that there's that element that, and I think that passionate part of music therapy is we're also nerdy and we think it's fun. So it's work, but it's what
Mm-hmm.
we like to do too. So I think it's cool for that validation for him and for other people. Like how
Mm-hmm.
cool, like this is what it could happen other ways. But I think you had another story in mind there.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, Stephen Day, actually, the musician that we featured at conference.
That
um
song is awesome.
yeah. I was a little hesitant um as to what his reaction was going to be, because we tore pretty hard into that song.
Yeah.
Like it was like we just got really deep into it. And so I was like, is he gonna understand this? Like
Yeah.
is he gonna be offended by some of the things that we're saying? So I was very hesitant to hear back from him. But then he like he posted it on his social media and he shared it on his story, and he's like, "This is so cool. Everyone go listen to Clinical BOPulations." And I was just like, "Oh man, like he understood it and like he agreed with things that were being said." So that was just really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, there's other artists too that will like message back as soon as we release an episode and just thank us and also say how cool it is to hear different perspectives and how it can be used to help people in different ways beyond just attending a concert or just hearing it on Spotify.
I think it's just awesome, especially your all's perspective in the stance. I know that it's partially an issue of sharing music on a podcast, but that idea of how can we celebrate what independent artists are doing? I think it's
Definitely.
so cool. And you're a songwriter and a performer yourself, right?
Yes, I am.
So, I kind of to transition. I've already spent a lot of your time here, so to transition towards
okay.
the final parts, what other projects, you said you like having irons in the fire. What other things do you have going on? Do you have any other things that we can keep an eye out for?
Well, a couple of months ago, I released a songwriting journal called Space, and it's a small 100-page journal for music therapists and music therapy students to use to get better acquainted with just songwriting for themselves as a means to eventually use it in practice.
That's
So it
great.
gives the tips and tricks of different song forms and different chord progressions. There's also different prompts for you to journal about. So it encourages a lot of self-reflection and pulling from those reflections and putting them into lyrics of a particular structure, particular chord progression, and then drafting and then creating an actual song from it.
I love it.
Um,
Where can you find that?
you could find it
Where's that
on
available?
Amazon.com.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's called Space, a journal for future music therapists to explore and express through songwriting.
sweet.
Yeah.
Any other crazy irons in the fire other than your regular work and life and podcasts?
Yeah. I'm always like collaborating with people for songwriting and other music things. So, um, I am starting to one of my coworkers just writes musicals for
Mm,
fun and puts them on, but he found out I was a songwriter, and so every time he starts a musical he asks me to collaborate on it and put words in it, which at first and it still is actually it's challenging because it's very different from
yeah.
your normal pop or rock song.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to put the story and find the way for the song to carry the story and
Mhm.
like make coherent sense.
Yeah, it's
um,
marrying composition and songwriting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So he makes most of the music, and then I usually just ask what the song is supposed to be about and the storyline behind it, and then we put it together. So he has just started working on one right now. So I'm going to start working on it pretty soon. But we've released two musicals before this. So one of them is called The Adventure of Beta Kid, which is based on it's like a video game musical. So all the music is very chiptune in like 80s and then
That's
based on
awesome.
different old video games. But it follows the story of a kid going through a video game and trying to complete a mission, but at the end you find out that the story and all the lands and journeys that he goes through kind of parallels the student's reality. The main character's actual real struggle with grief.
Mm.
Yeah. So that was a really cool one and a really emotional one to work on,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, and then before that, we made a musical based on The Nightmare Before Christmas. It was kind of like a sequel.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, and then because we work in a theater, we just get the kids to perform it. And so
Great.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's kind of the project I'm working on right now, or one of the projects I'm working on right now. And then I'm also working on some original stuff for a new EP, hopefully to come out sometime next year. Um, so
That's
that's
great.
also in the fire as well.
That's awesome. Many things on the horizon. I love it.
Yes, yeah, a lot of
That's
things.
cool. Well, to kind of transition to the last parts. So, the whole mission of the podcast here is to connect people to music and one another.
Hmm.
And really specifically, I hope that there's just one person who can hear your story and feel heard and encouraged and validated. So, the kind of last things before we go into some rapid fire is, how do you, through your work, through your podcast, through your songwriting, how do you feel that you inspire others to make more music?
Mm. I think by connecting with them
Hmm.
and creating an environment where they feel open enough to share.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Do you, and then to kind of peel an extra layer back from that, why do you feel like it's important to inspire people to make more music?
Hmm. That's a good question. I just don't want to say something cliche, which is why I'm thinking about
I
this.
think it's going to be okay. We can roll into cliche territory.
um, I think it's important because, kind of like what you were saying um, just before you asked this question, that um, you never know who is going to connect to it and who is going to be impacted by it.
Hmm.
So I think that the world needs more music
Yeah.
because it just it gives people something to resonate with, and I just like, the thing that's coming to mind is Bruce's quote about
Let's hear it. Bring it in.
songwriting. I use this quote too much. I use it way too much.
I don't think you can quote Brusha too much,
I
so go
think,
for it.
I don't know. I think you can. I mean, I used it in my presentation. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. Let me pull
Just
it up.
cue it up. Yeah,
I know.
just cue it up.
I need to find it.
I'll put a nice organ pad
I know.
behind you saying it.
You should have like choir angel, like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
choir of angels in the
I'm just gonna
background.
play the new Kanye album, and you're gonna talk over that.
Are you gonna play the Chick-fil-A one?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
Please put that in there, please.
yeah.
That'd be great.
There's not a chance that's leaving.
um, okay, so this is mainly like, this quote says songs, but I think it could be applied to music, just all music as well. But this is from Ken Bruscia, The Dynamics of Music Psychotherapy. Songs are ways that human beings explore emotions. They express who we are and how we feel. They bring us closer to others. They keep us company when we are alone. They articulate our beliefs and values. As the years pass, songs bear witness to our lives. They allow us to relive the past, examine the present, and to voice our dreams of the future. Songs weave tales of our joys and sorrows. They reveal our innermost secrets, and they express our hopes and disappointments, our fears and triumphs. They are our musical diaries, our life stories. They are sounds of our personal development.
Snaps to that. Yeah. I'm golf clapping back over here. Yeah.
So
No,
that's why.
that
That's why
quote's so
music is
great.
needed. That's why it's
Yeah.
needed. Yes.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
love that picture of um that it's not necessary, but it's what it makes life worth living, that other
Mhm.
cliche thing.
Mhm.
But so now thinking directly about the one person who tuned in, heard me, heard you for the first time, what would you tell somebody who was interested in any of the number of things that you're doing, but is nervous or is discouraged or whatever? What would you tell that person?
Are they nervous? What are they nervous to do?
To, launch their podcast, to put an EP
Oh,
out, to become a
oh,
music therapist, whatever
yeah.
it is. Pick any
Uh,
of the amazing things you do and just pick one of them.
um, the hardest part is getting started, in my opinion. So just creating something and putting it out there, and try to just get over the fear of what people are gonna think or what people are gonna say, um, because we all have that, or I believe that we all have some sort of creativity within
Mm,
us that is just yearning to come out.
yeah.
And just when we don't release what's inside, it's just gonna fester, and it's gonna cause more like self-doubt, and
Hmm.
just like self-talk about, is this worth it to put it out? Is this worth it to, look into that music therapy program? Just get started, take that first step,
Yeah,
is what I would say.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other people are worried about the same exact thing. So whatever you put out there, they're worried about their
Yeah.
own thing they're putting
Yeah.
out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
if it's
also,
not meant for you, you'll find out quick.
yeah,
So,
yeah, you'll find out quick. But also, even if there's no response to
mhm.
whatever you've created, it doesn't make it any less good.
Yeah,
The
for
fact
sure.
that you created it, and it came from you, um, makes
Just
it
that
better.
catharsis,
Yeah.
is worth it in itself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's do a couple of quick six questions.
Okay.
Go ahead and get your phone ready.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Uh, whatever your last, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you use, pull up your last track played. Tell us what that is.
Passion Play by William Fitzsimmons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any what genre is that?
It's like indie folk,
Cool.
acoustic. Yeah.
If you were gonna be an instrument, what instrument would you be?
um. Huh. Does it have to be like? Does it have to be an acoustic or a traditional instrument?
No rules. You make the rules.
No rules.
Yeah.
No rules. um,
Mom and dad are home.
there is this new instrument, not instrument, but well, I guess musical thing that came out. Um, the company Rolly
Oh
just
yeah,
just
yeah.
made this new thing called the light pad block, and
Mm,
it's this square
I'm gonna look it up.
that that, I mean, it's as big as your hand, but it does so many things, and it lights up in all these cool colors. You can use it as a drum pad, you can use it as a sampler. Like, there's so many things you can do with it. um, So I would like to be that instrument if I had a choice.
Cool and new and versatile. I like it. Cool.
Yes.
That's sweet. It looks crazy. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go down a YouTube rabbit hole later with that.
Yeah, for sure.
What is something that's been inspiring you recently?
That I'm sorry, I don't have a quick answer for this.
No worries. It's okay. We can't always be inspired. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, honestly, for being honest right now, I haven't been super well. Like inspired as far as like creativity wise, or just inspired for life in general.
You know me. There's no rules.
Oh my gosh.
Life in general is fine.
I need structure. Oh my gosh, Chris. Okay.
I'm giving you an open playground.
Oh gosh. Oh, that gives me such anxiety. Okay. I guess next year is inspiring.
Great.
There's a couple cool things coming down the pipeline. And so
yeah,
I think just being at the end of 2019, I'm just like, is it the next decade yet? Like, can we please get there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but 2020 seems like there's going to be like laser glasses and flying cars. Like the number 2020 sounds like so futuristic.
Have you seen that meme? I don't know if it's a meme or someone tweeted how, people want flying cars, but you know how now, like even just now when people are driving and like your gas tank is low, people are like, I know my car, it's okay. Like I can drive a couple more miles. But if there were flying cars and people were saying that, a car could literally drop from the sky.
Yeah.
Onto
that's bad news.
Yeah.
No, we're good. We're good. Yeah.
I know my car.
Yeah.
You're in the sky. Come on, man.
Yeah. I don't even like the Tesla truck, so there's no way. There's no way. Okay. In all the things you're doing, what is one pro tip or a hack, something that you feel like you're able to use to either be better or faster or whatever that you think people should know about? It can be as simple as like this stapler that you think is super awesome. It doesn't have to be something crazy.
Well, if you are in the podcasting game or just any sort of creative game that needs marketing, there are two things that come in handy and gets you to do stuff that looks cool and quick. Canva.com has a lot of awesome templates that look pretty professional. But then there's also different apps in which you can use to schedule out posts. So if you have, if you want to sparse out different posts to get people's attention, or you don't have time to post on a particular day, you can just make a bunch of things on Canva and then schedule it all out for like, the next month, so that you don't have to worry about it and it's, automatically posted and engaging people.
That's great. Do you have a favorite thing?
App.
Asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
I use Later, but it costs to do more than one social media, but I think it's a worthy investment.
Sweet. All right, 2 more quick ones.
Yes.
What's your go-to junk food?
Gosh, I think salt and vinegar chips.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Favorite brand? Does it matter?
It depends. If I want to be loud, I will go with like kettle cooked. But
If I want to be loud.
I mean, you can't eat those quietly. So
I thought you meant like bold. Like if I want to be bold.
No. Like
That's great. Like if I'm feeling ostentatious.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Kettle cook's great if you're around people that are going to let you go there.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, let's go ahead to this next one then. So this can be anything you're working on or for somebody else or whatever, but is there a person, a project, or an organization that you feel like deserves your shout out or something you want to lift up?
Yeah. So going back to the Rolly thing, my friend that introduced me to it, or that I saw it from, is this musician in Nashville, and his name is Johnny. That's like, but he has this
Johnny Nashville.
Johnny in Nashville, but he has an Instagram account. It's Johnny Be Good 89, and he is this tech guru and makes beats, and with stuff like the Rolly, but also like the OP1, and then just normal drum machines and all these different things. And so he makes these amazing little remixes just for fun, and posts them on like this account. But he also, I mean, does his own. He creates music for like other musicians, for commercials, and he's just an amazing musician. And so I would
Awesome.
like to give Johnny Be Good 89 a shout out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely going to check him out
Mm-hmm.
too. So, well, that's all I've got for the regularly scheduled programming. So I'm super appreciative of your time. I feel like I just met you, but we feel like friends. And you're already like a podcast mentor to me, and you've only
Oh
given me like
my
5
gosh.
minutes of advice. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all your work and what you're doing. And
Thank you.
so where's the best place you want to send people to funnel to find all of the things you're doing?
I have a website, gabbybanzon.com. But also, I mean, I'm on Instagram and Twitter at GabTheZilla, so you can find me there. And yeah, I mean, also like Clinical BOPulations has a Facebook group, also has an Instagram and a Twitter. So yeah, you can find me and then that particular project on there as well.
All right. Well, Gabby, thanks again. We're going to sign off. Just remember, give more grace, share more love, and make more music.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Gabby. If you're a music therapist that is not already listening to Clinical BOPulations, like, what are you doing? So go follow Clinical BOPulations, follow her on Instagram. And if you're interested in getting in touch with us, you can send an email to makemoremusicpodcast@gmail.com. You can call our Google Voice and leave us a question at 502-509-5420. And of course, join our Instagram community at make.more.music. It would also help immensely if you would share this podcast with somebody in your life that you think needs and would want to hear these things. As well, you can leave a rating and review on your podcast app. And ultimately, otherwise, I'll catch you on the next time. So remember, give more grace, share more love, make more music.